Join us for this Season for Nonviolence service. I'm Nicole Von Ansian, one of many ministerial students here tonight to celebrate in the season with you all. We have a very beautiful service planned for you tonight, which will include appearances from our youth, talks from our ministers in training, musical performances, and some dialogue. But first, many of you may be wondering, what is the Season for Nonviolence? The Season for Nonviolence is a 64-day educational, media, and grassroots campaign dedicated to demonstrating nonviolence. The season spans from January 30th to April 4th with the memorial anniversaries of Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. It is in its 18th consecutive year, and people from all around the world join to celebrate and bring awareness to nonviolence. Tonight, we are united in consciousness, in the consciousness of peace. Gatherings of peace like this create a shift, a momentum, and they ignite a fire within us. This is not a political movement, but a movement of peace, where like-minded individuals can gather who are for something and against nothing. Nonviolence is not a submissive, inactive allowance of injustice, but rather a very active movement, which is demonstrated by our very gathering here tonight. I invite you this evening to stand with us, in your hearts and in your minds, in a place of courage. It takes courage to come from love and not fear. It takes courage to set boundaries and to follow through with them. It takes courage to be the example for peace, for love, and for inclusivity. I invite us all to be fearless and gentle with ourselves and others, and to courageously choose love, peace, and nonviolence. When being released from prison, Nelson Mandela had explained, "As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew that if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I would still be in prison." Let us come together tonight and open the doorway of our own minds and hearts to a new way, to an ancient way, to the way of peace and love and courage. And now I would like to invite on stage Mahatma Gandhi as as Gavin McAllister and Martin Luther King Jr. as Gabriel Acuna, or the opposite.
Hello, I'm Mahatma Gandhi. My religion is based on truth and nonviolence. Truth is my God. Nonviolence is a means of realizing Him.
Hello, my name is Martin Luther King Jr. Nonviolence is a powerful and just weapon which cuts without wounding and ennobles the man who wields it.
we want to achieve social justice for all peoples. To help explore that thought a bit further, let me welcome John to the stage.
I suppose what I'm going to share might be a little bit about what many perceive as conflict. But before we enact a little bit of a dialogue imagined between Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and the then president of the greatest nation on earth, Lyndon Baines Johnson, come back with me and imagine, what was it for Dr. King that motivated him to bring forward the principle of nonviolence and to really take a stand and lead a massive transformation across the nation? I would suggest, as I've looked at not only what I've known studying generally, but what was brought forward in the movie Selma, that Dr. King had a grasp on a problem of social justice, the desire for equality where there was inequality. And in the face of that, it was that passion for true social justice that called to Dr. King and said, this cause is worthy, and now is the time. So, if you join me, Michael, we're going to just enact something taken from the movie and some of the materials about the movie that gives a sense of the dialogue that spawned the events in Selma. And as we do this, remember that there were issues of conflict, but there was also the day, not the day when the march was first turned back, but the day when the march started again, when law enforcement backed down, when King knelt on the bridge and his communion with the divine concluded that he should turn and walk away, that it wasn't the day to march, that in the principle of nonviolence, it wasn't the time for the action. What a divine sense of following his heart, following his calling in spite of all the pressures on both sides. But this dialogue will give a sense of what set the stage for that momentous event. Mr. President, in the South there have been thousands of racially motivated murders. We need your help.
Dr. King, this thing is just going to have to wait.
It cannot wait.
You've got one big issue. I've got 101.
Mr. President, people are dying.
You march those people into rural Alabama, it's going to be open season.
And Dr. King's comment now to his colleagues who were waiting for his word as he came back from meeting privately with the President of the United States of America. Selma, it is. It is unacceptable that they use their power to keep us voiceless. Those that have gone before say no more. I can't hide. I'm here for a reason. I'm no different than anybody else. I want to live long and be happy. But whatever I am, I owe to my family and to those who stand with me. What happens when a man stands up and says, enough is enough? We must march, we must stand up.
One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours, it'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory. Oh,
the heavens, no man, no weapon formed against, yes, glorious destiny. Everyday women and men become legends. Sins that go against our skin become blessings. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is just a position in us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. One son died, his spirit is revisiting us. Truant living in us, resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it go down, we woman and man up. They say stand down and we stand up. Shots we on the ground, the camera panned up. King pointed to the mountaintop and we ran up.
When the glory comes, it'll be ours. It'll be ours. Oh, one day when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory, glory. Now the war is not over, victory isn't won, but we'll fight on to the finish until it's all done. We'll cry glory, oh glory, oh. We'll cry glory, oh glory.
Cells now for every man, woman, and child. Even Jesus got his crown in front of a crowd. They marched with the torch, we're gonna run with it now. Never look back, we've done gone hundreds of miles. Our dark roads, heroes to become a hero. Facing the League of Justice, his power was the people. Enemy is lethal, a kingdom became regal. Saw the face of Jim Crow under a bald eagle. The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful. We sing our music, it's the cuts that we bleed through. Somewhere in the dream we had an epiphany. Now we right the wrongs in history. No one can win the war individually. It takes the wisdom of the elders and the young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory. The coming of the Lord, my eyes have seen the glory.
One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours. It'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, glory. Oh, we'll yell glory, oh, glory, glory, oh, glory. When the war is won, when it's all said and done, we'll cry glory, oh glory, glory, oh glory, glory. Into your hands I commit my spirit. Into your hands I commit my soul. Into your hands I surrender. Into your hands, oh
when we know absolutely that simple truth, that we are the life that God is. It's when we know that we are all the love, all the joy, all the peace, all the oneness that has ever been or ever will be right here at the core of our being. It's at that moment that we know that divine truth that we get to sit in the hands of God. It's at that moment that we know that truth, that we know the absolute truth of our own beingness, and we know why we are coming here, right now, why we have come to be who we are. And when we know who we have come here to be, all of creation, all the power, all the creativity that there is, comes forward and springs forth to move in the direction that supports the choices that we make in knowing who we have come here to be. That's the way life works. That's what changes the world. It's what makes the world continue to move forward and upwards. I'd like to tell you a story of a woman who changed the world. If you were an observer on December 1st, 1955, you would see this woman. She was 42 years old, a black woman. She was a seamstress. And if you did not know anything more of her, you might just dismiss her. But on this particular day, she had gone to work and she was coming home from work and she needed to take a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. And when she got on that bus, you would have seen her walk past the first 10 rows because those were reserved for the white people. And she would have taken a seat in the 11th row. And the bus would have moved on. But a couple of stops later, the bus was full and there was no more room in the front of the bus. And so when a white man didn't have a place to sit, the driver went back and told Rosa Parks that she needed to stand up. But she didn't stand up. She sat down. And she sat down because she knew the dignity that she was, because she was the oneness that God is. She knew absolutely that somebody, anybody that respected the dignity that she had would not ask her to get up so that a white man could sit in her place. I watched a video of her, an interview of her many years later, and she said this: "I don't remember feeling anger, but I did feel determined to take this as an opportunity to let it be known that I did not want to be treated in that manner and that people have endured it far too long. However, I did not have at the moment of my arrest any idea of how people would react." She didn't plot. She didn't plan. She didn't talk to people and say, "This is how the world is going to react if I do this." She simply sat in her own dignity, and because of that, she sat in God's hands, and the world wrapped around her, and the world changed. I have a lot of respect for Martin Luther King because he took the spark that Rosa Parks lit and he fanned it into flames. But I have a lot of awe for Rosa Parks because Rosa Parks just sat. She didn't do anything but sit in the hands of God. And what I know is true for each and every one of us is that if we just sit in the hands of God, that the whole world will change around us.
We are the ones who will change the world. Thank you, Rhonda. So what can we, ordinary people, do? Reverend Christian Sorensen says in his book, Spiritual Living Journal, am I supposed to be like Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Jesus? They made a difference and changed the world. Well, I'd like to mention a few people and groups who have been changing the world in the present day. Talking about bullying in schools, I'm a retired school teacher. In South Carolina, 8 seniors decided to assault a 14-year-old special needs student. And the other members of his senior class, including a couple of student representatives, said, no, that is not okay. They started a petition drive for anti-bullying, and they did it in support of this student to show that he was not alone and that they were behind him. In New Hampshire, a 14-year-old girl who was bullied herself started a movement to teach kindness, showing kindness to others. This movement started in her state, spread across all of the United States and into other countries. She was teaching people how to be kind to others, even bullies. And she was also teaching those who had been bullied strategies to stand up for themselves. Going into another realm, religion. Just this past February 21st, in Oslo, Norway, a group of over 1,000 Muslims stood in support in a circle around the synagogue in that city. They were standing in symbolic support of the Jewish community there and in reaction to a recent bombing in Denmark, I believe it was. One of the leaders of the Muslim community said, we were chanting, no to anti-Semitism, no to Islamophobia, just no. He said, we were there to show that we are all one. There are more peacemongers in this world than warmongers. And there's still hope for humanity, for peace and love, to find our similarities among religious differences and backgrounds. And I say yes to that. Bishop Desmond Tutu says, peace in its most fundamental form is the connection of one human spirit to another. Yes, we have our differences. Yes, we might be different colors or creeds or religions. But in each of us is that spark of God. In each of us is that similarity. And if we just look, it's there. Look past the differences. Look to our mutual love and our mutual being children of God. Peace Pilgrim says, when you find peace within yourself, you become the kind of person who can live at peace with others. But what did he say first? Finding peace within myself. That's where it starts, within myself. Back to Reverend Christian. He's one of our teachers of the ministerial school, so we hold him in pretty high regard. He said, I am uniquely me. So I'm not ordinary, right, am I? I'm uniquely me. I become clearer about who I am and what talents I have, what special talents I have. I listen to what makes my heart sing. I love that. What makes my heart sing? And I can make a difference as I give of my time, talent, and treasures to others. I find causes and communities that are working for something that I believe in. I lend my helping hand, my loving heart, my voice, my clear, strong voice, and my faith to another. I make a stand, and I make a difference, and so do you.
Peace, light, love in me. Peace, light, love in me. Here in the stillness of this quiet hour, sweet words of wisdom fill my ears. Your words like water keep my soul sustained. Let it rain, let it rain. Peace, light,
What an amazing song. I'm honored to share about praying for peace. And I will be going into prayer, but I wanted to share first a little about the power of prayer and how that power of prayer can be love. It can form a deeper connection with us to the God within us, to the peace that's within us, and how we can practice peace through the power of prayer. Ernest Holmes shares this quote in the Science of Mind textbook called, "Peace is the power at the heart of God." And we come from that place of peace. We recognize that no matter what we're seeing around us, any illusions other than peace, that we ourselves can be that light of peace in the world. Many of you have probably been to Disneyland and seen It's a Small World. How many of us hear that song and it brings us memories of being at Disneyland and Walt Disney being one of those people that had a vision for the world. And what you might not know about that song and that particular attraction, Richard and Robert Sherman did a lot of the music for a lot of the Disney classics, and Walt had asked them to create a song that could be translated into many different languages. And there are traditional lyrics that you may not be aware of, but these are the actual lyrics that were written for this song. And I believe it speaks to the place of peace within all of us. It's a world of laughter, a world of tears. It's a world of hopes and a world of fears. There's so much that we share that it's time we're aware it's a small world after all. So when we realize how small our world is, it's that oneness that's within us, that divine peace, that divine presence. And when we go to prayer, we connect on a heart level that place of peace. So I'd like us to turn within in prayer for peace this evening. That as we recognize that right here and right now, right where we are, is that presence of God. It is that divine light, that divine peace, the divine understanding of knowing that there is only God, that goodness that comes up from within. That when we come from that place of peace, we see through the eyes of spirit. We listen with the ears of spirit. We come from that place of compassion and grace that we know is God in action, moving in, through, and as us, showing up as Rosa Parks, showing up as Gandhi, and Martin Luther King, and Walt Disney, and each and every one of us, for we are all one with a vision. And what that vision is what calls us into action and making our own difference, and recognizing and knowing that right here and right now is that divine peace. That we recognize and know that as we step out into the world from this place of peace and light and love, of recognizing that as we stand together in that oneness and calling forth that truth, we recognize and know that we are the ones. We are the ones to carry this vision out into the world with grace and with light, with love and a sense of knowing that in the midst of each and every moment is God. That seed of light, of potentiality and possibility that we take out into the world, making our own difference. With a grateful heart, I release my word into the lock, already knowing that there's that sense of peace in prayer. That as we pray without ceasing, we know we are one. As I release my word, I know it is done into this love, the law. And I say together, and so it is. I'd like to leave you with this quote of Mother Teresa. She says, "Peace begins with a smile." So when we greet each other with a smile, we're reminding ourselves of the divine light that's within each of us, and we're calling forth that peace that we already know is present. We feel it, we live it, we embrace it, and we embody it. Namaste. It is now time for our offering. If our ushers could take their places. And I invite you to bless your offering privately as you may do as we share an affirmation together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give and all that I receive, I am prosperous. Thank you, God.
Wow, what a night, huh? So far you've heard about uniting with the consciousness of peace. You've heard about journey where conflict was necessary to achieve human rights for all. You've heard about acting while sitting in God's hands, like Rosa Parks did. You've heard about each of us choosing and actively taking a stand. You've heard about the power of prayer and how powerful contacting the God within can be. And how about that time when you get the knock on the door at midnight, where someone comes to you and asks you for something? It comes from the parable of Luke that says, "Friend, lend me 3 loaves, for a friend of mine has arrived on a journey, and I have nothing to set before him." And so you could be any of 3 people in this parable. You could be the person that has the goods, and someone comes drastically wanting to help another, and they don't have what it takes to help them. And so you can just gladly give them that. And then when you do that, they can go help the person. You can be the compassionate person that doesn't have the resources to help the person that really almost could not ask for help because they were so destitute. And then you got that and you did that. Or you could be the person who just doesn't know which way to turn and just reaches out to another person and says, "Please help me." Or maybe they don't even, and you rely on the compassion of the other person. So these are all 3 sort of dark night of the soul stories. It tells you where your experience is. And sometimes even the leaders like Martin Luther King went through these times. And there was a real charismatic leader in the civil rights movement. Her name was Sister Pollard. And she was the matriarchal image of the boot soldier that walked forever and ever. And she was in her 80s. And they kept trying to put her on the bus. And she says, "No, I'm gonna walk with you guys. I'm gonna walk with you guys. Go away," and slap them around. And she was not a respecter of persons, even Dr. King, because she came to Dr. King, and this was a week when Dr. King had some threats laid into his house. Him and his family had not got any sleep almost all week. And she said, "Dr. King, you're not speaking very strong. What's wrong with you?" He says, "I'll be okay, Sister Pollard. And she says, no, you're not listening to me, Dr. King. You can't fool us. Because you've got to remember, even when you're down, you know that we're with you. He says, I'll be okay, I'll be okay. And she grabs him and says, come down here where you can hear me, Dr. King. Now let me tell you this and listen to me. Now even if we ain't with you, the Lord is with you. And listen to me again, because the Lord's going to take care of you. So sometimes that path forward, it's all about, sometimes we can reach out to one another, and sometimes we need to reach out to a higher power that is above us. And with all these issues, Dr. King gave us a path, a way of understanding it. Whether it's an issue doing with ISIS, whether it's an issue that's perceived as renewed racism, whether it's an issue in our own community that we see people starving to death on the side of the road and we can't feed them all. So he gave us 3 ways to look at this in the 3 dimensions of a complete life. And he really simplified it. The first dimension was love thyself and build thyself up. And we certainly know how to do that in our religious science community. We're very good at knowing that we're worthy. We're very good at learning the power of affirmations and creating things in our life that we have. And if anything's wrong in our life, be it prosperity, be it health, be it emotional health, we know how to get on the phone and say, I know I deserve it. Can you please do an affirmation for me? Can you support me? And we support that with all our movement. And that's very good because we know that we all have to take care of ourselves to do better work and better good work in the world. So that brings us to the second part of the complete life, an outward concern for others. And see, in the Hebrew Bible, or what Christians refer to as the Old Testament, the prophets especially, they were so convinced that God had a justice plan, that there was social justice, that it was not the rich people and the poor people, that everything would be righted. And Dr. King loved these prophets and quoted from them many times. One of his most famous ones was Amos, the oldest book in the Bible. And that's where he gets his famous quote, righteousness will roll down like waters and judgment like a mighty stream. But part of realizing the second aspect of life, of caring for others, is realizing the way that we are interdependent on one another. We're no longer this isolated person that only has to worry about us. And the people that don't have as much as us, that's their idea or their bad thinking. We're totally interdependent on each other. From the coffee we drink, to the clothes that we wear, to the devices we use. They came from all over the world, people we've never met. And they touch our lives. This interdependence touches our lives every day. It's just sometimes we don't choose to admit it. In the third dimension, he says this is where we end up. He says we move beyond our self-concern for others and we reach up to embrace that which is infinite, whatever we want to call it. We're going to call it God, Spirit, the great and unchangeable. But we reach up to get our answers and to get a power from something above ourselves. And Dr. King tells us what life is like when we finally reach this place. He says this, he says, you can walk and never get weary. You can look up and see the morning stars singing together and the sons and daughters of God shouting for joy. When you get all these working together, the Lamb will lie down with the lion. You look up and every valley will be exalted and every hill and mountain will be made low. The rough places will be made plain and the crooked places straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed and all flesh will see it together. And he ends and all in with this. When you get all 3 of these working together, you will do unto others as you have them do unto you.
Don't worry, mother, it'll be alright. Don't worry, sister, say your prayers and sleep tight. It'll be fine, lover of mine. It'll be just fine. Lend your voices only to sounds of freedom. No longer lend your strength to that which you wish to be free from. Fill life with love and bravery, and you will lead a life uncommon. I've heard your anguish, I've heard your hearts cry out. We are tired, we are weary, but we are worn out. Set down your chains till only faith remains. Set down your chains and lend your voices only to sounds of freedom. No longer lend your strength to that which you wish to be free from. Fill life with love and bravery, and you will lead a life uncommon. There are plenty of people who pray for peace, but if praying was enough, it would have come to be. Let your words enslave no one, and the heavens will hush themselves to hear the voices ring out clear with sounds of freedom, with sounds of freedom. Come on, you unbelievers, move out of the way. There's a new army coming, and we are made of faith to live. We must give to live. Lend your voices only to sounds of freedom. No longer lend your strength to that which you wish to be free from. Fill life with love and bravery, and you shall lead. And lend your voices only to sounds of freedom. Only lend your strength to that which you wish to be free from. Fill life with love and bravery, and you shall lead a life uncommon.
And that concludes our program for the evening. Hope you enjoyed it. We'd love for you to stay for refreshments before you make your way home.
projects.